Solo Traveler here. My fifth trip of 2026 is by far my shortest as I take a walking tour of Old Toronto. In this episode, I tour the oldest part of the city, which is surprisingly rich in history and culture. I visit St. Lawrence Hall and St. James Cathedral, which both played vital roles in Toronto's origins. I visit the St. Lawrence Market, including the newly opened North Market, explore the history of Toronto and its connections to the Underground Railroad, have a fantastic lunch at the market, and visit Toronto's first post office. Let's go. It's a rare Saturday at home with nothing scheduled, so I decided to do something that I've been meaning to do since I moved into the neighborhood. Almost immediately outside my doors is Old Town Toronto. In these neighborhoods that stretch along Front, King, and Adelaide Streets, east of Yonge Street, are Toronto's oldest buildings, and when visiting them, you can literally walk through Toronto's history and beginnings of the city. Just before I start my tour, I passed by this building here. This is an F45 now, but back in the 80s it was actually an Irish pub, and this is where the famous pub scene in Good Will Hunting was filmed. Anyways, after that I walked up to King and Jarvis Street to St. Lawrence Hall. This building isn't well known, but it played a critical role in the 1800s with the Underground Railroad. From 1820 right up until 1861, the start of the Civil War, over 30,000 slaves took boats from Rochester across Lake Ontario, landed on the docks that surrounded St. Lawrence Market, and then walked north along Jarvis Street and made their way here, where they were officially welcomed, given paperwork and some money, and sent on their way to find new lives and freedom in Canada. The website said that the hall would be open on Saturdays, but for some reason the doors were locked. I was disappointed I couldn't get in. St. Lawrence Hall was also the focal point of the abolitionist movement, and famous abolitionist Frederick Douglass spoke in the hall in 1851 while he was attending the North American Convention of Colored Free Men. In his speech, referred to as an appeal to Canada, it dealt with the U.S. Fugitive Slave Act, which made Toronto's involvement in the Underground Railroad even more important. After that, I walked along King Street to the St. James Cathedral at King and Church. First established in 1797, this is the fifth Anglican church that's actually been built on this site. The current structure that is here was opened in 1853, following the fires in 1839 and again in 1849. The original church was used as a hospital in the War of 1812. Walking into the church, it felt like you were literally walking into a history book for the origins of the city. Inside the cathedral, there are beautiful stained glass windows that line the walls, and in those stained glass windows are etched history books about the foundations of Toronto and the Anglican Church. All of the different stained glass windows are dedicated to some of the most influential families in Toronto and throughout the region. Names like Jarvis, Ryerson, Cawthra, Dundas, and other families who were prominent fixtures in the Anglican Church were all dedicated along these windows. In the 1800s, Toronto was dominated by the Anglican and Protestant religions. Catholics were seen as a second-class citizen. I'll talk more about that later. Walking through the church and exploring these beautiful stained glass windows, you really get a sense of the beginnings of where Toronto came from. You also get kind of the sense of what it was like back in the 1800s, where religious families and influential people within the church really ruled the entire region, and it was their rule of law that really governed the society that Toronto was established with back in the 1800s. As you walk through the church and read all the plaques and dedications of stained glass windows, one family name really stands out above all the rest, and that is the family of Jarvis. The Jarvis family, a prominent loyalist family in early Toronto, had a significant multi-generational role in the development of the Cathedral Church of St. James. They were part of the elite family compact and were deeply involved in both the religious and social leadership of the city. The family compact was a small, tight-knit group of conservative officials and elites who dominated the political, economic, and judicial life of Upper Canada, which is now Ontario, from the 1810s to the 1840s, and were centered in York, which was officially changed to Toronto in 1834. They maintained control through patronage, ensuring the Church of England's influence and resisting democratic reforms. Their rigid, oligarchic rule sparked the 1837 rebellions, ultimately forcing the shift towards responsible government. Also, they ruled the rule of law with Anglican church rule, and they considered Irish Catholics second-class citizens. The most prominent figure at this time could have been Reverend Henry James Grasset. He was a prominent 19th century Anglican clergyman, educator, and the first Dean of Toronto from 1867 to 1882. He served as the rector of St. James Cathedral in Toronto for 47 years, playing a crucial role in its development, including laying the cornerstone in 1850. After I was finished at the church, I walked back east along King Street towards St. Lawrence Hall, and I turned south through this little walkway to check out the north and south buildings of the St. Lawrence Market, both of which have very unique histories and have been built and rebuilt several times. First, the North Hall, which is a brand new building, which just opened in 2025. The newly redeveloped North Building of the St. Lawrence Market is a sustainable 5-story multi-use hub that permanently houses the historic Saturday Farmers Market, a tradition that has been there since 1803. It combines a modern glass atrium market hall, city court services, and it sits on the site of Toronto's original 1803 market. That's continuing a 200-year tradition of community gathering and commerce on this spot. After this, I went across the street to explore the older and far more famous South Building of the St. Lawrence Market. This current version of the St. Lawrence Market South has been in place since 1853. Originally opened in 1803, rebuilt and changed several times in the 1830s, 40s, and 50s, usually due to fires. The St. Lawrence Market was Toronto's first city hall, and during the years of the Underground Railroad, it became the primary escape route for more than 30,000 African slaves. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 forced even more slaves to flee to Canada, and docks surrounding the St. Lawrence Market unloaded thousands of slaves. At the time, the shoreline of Toronto came right up to the market, which is how its address on Front Street got its name. During this same time, another brutal history also played out. In the 1850s, as I mentioned before, Toronto's religious landscape was really dominated by the Anglican Church. This meant that Irish Catholics in particular were victimized through systemic discrimination, economic exclusion, and frequent sectarian violence. Right underneath the main entrance of St. Lawrence Market is the remnants of a jail that existed in the 1850s. In this jail, Irish Catholics were frequently imprisoned in the most brutal way possible. They were shackled to the wall, tortured, and starved. After my history lesson, I explored the St. Lawrence Market as it exists today, which is a hotbed of activity on a Saturday afternoon. This is a unique combination of local Ontario-made and grown foods. Vendors in the market sell everything, including fresh meats, cheeses, seafood, pasta, baked goods, fish, fresh produce, fruits and vegetables, and even fine wine. I find the prices can be expensive at some of the gourmet meat and deli counters, but you can also find good deals as well. A couple of places I recommended visiting are Buster's Sea Cove for fresh fish sandwiches and their famous lobster roll, St. Urbain's, where they bake fresh Montreal-style bagels right there in front of you. They literally come fresh right out of a traditional oven and are still warm when they put them in the bag. Or the fresh fruit markets right up near the main entrance on Front Street. The fruit markets are my personal favorite. You can find good deals, the best quality, and sometimes they even give you a discount if you pay cash. Last but certainly not least, St. Lawrence Market is famous for peameal bacon sandwiches, and the place that's been a fixture here for decades is Paddington's. Peameal bacon, also known as back bacon or Canadian bacon, is pork loin cured in brin and rolled in cornmeal. It's called peameal bacon because it used to be rolled in crushed yellow peas, extending its shelf life. This changed to cornmeal after World War I. All the great food options were making me hungry, so I finally decided to stop at Carousel Bakery. I ordered myself a sweet Parmesan chicken sandwich. I took it out to the patio area on Market Street on the west side of the building and really enjoyed a really nice lunch. It was just warm enough to sit outside and enjoy it. After lunch, I started to walk home, but on my way, I took a walk up to Adelaide Street and visited Toronto's first post office. Built in 1833, this is Canada's oldest surviving purpose-built post office, and it still operates as a functioning Canada Post outlet, as well as being a museum. It was almost destroyed in a famous fire in 1987, but was restored and has an interesting exhibit that talks about the history of mail delivery in Canada. The original postmaster, James Scott Howard, was fired in 1837 when he apparently supported the rebellions against the Anglican family compacts that we learnt about earlier. The building itself served many purposes over the years, including being a Roman Catholic boys' school, a butter factory, an egg storage facility, and part of a biscuit factory before being rediscovered and restored to a post office in 1978 after years of neglect. When you're here, you can try quilt letter writing. This is the traditional way letters were written 100 years ago. While I was there, I also discovered the original name of Toronto was made from the indigenous word Takaronto, which is a Mohawk word that means where there are trees standing in water. Toronto was initially founded as the City of York, and then was changed officially to Toronto on March 6, 1834. There was also this really cool reconstruction model of the Toronto waterfront from 1837. In this model, you can really see how the shoreline of Lake Ontario came almost all the way up to the St. Lawrence Market. You can see the large square building there in the middle, which was the original design of the market. Today, landfill extends the Toronto shoreline several blocks south of there, and where the Gardiner Expressway is today would have been right in the middle of Lake Ontario in 1837. After the post office, I only had a short walk home. This was something that I had wanted to explore for a while, and it's amazing how much history and culture can be found right outside your doorsteps. Sometimes you just need to go out and explore. You never know what you'll discover, even if it's in your own backyard. If you like videos like this, please subscribe, and follow me for more exploration, travel tips, and more at Solo Travel 44.